My name is Bobby Jackson. I am running for the Lewis County Commission District 2 seat this year. I am a transplanted Southerner, originally from Huntsville, Alabama. I have lived in the area for a little over 8.5 years. Came out in 2008 and have gotten pretty well acclimated to living here in Lewis County. Love living out here. I am married to a local girl, Carla Bell. We have between us 3 children and 8 grandchildren. 6 of those are granddaughters, so I stay broke the biggest part of the time. I currently work for KELA KMNT Radio in Centralia. I'm in the sales department there, and I'm also a sports broadcaster on KMNT Country. I cover all of the county high schools in all phases of sports: football, basketball, baseball, fast pitch. This year I have completed my 20th year in sports broadcasting. I have around 30 years in sales, public relations, and ministry experience, which is my skill set that I bring to this particular job. The reason I wanted to run for this position is because of my children and my grandchildren, and because I think we need to be forward-thinking as we approach the future here in Lewis County. I want my children to be able to continue to live here. They currently have sustainable wage jobs, and we're very happy about that because they're here at home and they're close to mom and dad. But I want my grandchildren to have the same kinds of opportunities. And so I think we need to begin thinking long-term about what we can do to set things in motion for the next 20 and 30 years. One of the things that you learn in leadership is that it doesn't end with you, and also that you need to be finding people to replace you along the way. And I believe strongly that my generation has a responsibility to do everything we can for our children to make sure that they can enjoy the same kind of life that we've been able to enjoy. And so those are the reasons why I'm running, and very happy to be able to be here and talk about that today.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. So first question, as promised, we're going to talk about Discover Lewis County a little bit. Estimates on the cost of the tourism website have ranged broadly, depending on who you're talking to, but in the community you hear numbers as low as $120,000, $130,000, and we've heard numbers as high as $500,000. Don't expect you to have the answer to that, but do you support a government expenditure on tourism, and if so, how much of the public's money do you think is appropriate to spend on it each year?
Well, first of all, I do support Discover Lewis County. I support it because I've seen the product, and I believe that it creates not only a vehicle for tourism, which is a very important part of who we are here in Lewis County, but it also, I believe, creates an opportunity for us to use this as a tool to market our county. There's been a huge firestorm about whether or not government should be involved in this or not. And the figures that you quoted, I have asked some questions about that. And the figure that I've been told through my conversations is $150,000 is what we've spent. It's a lot of money, but in the large scheme of things, as far as the county as a whole, it's kind of a drop in the bucket when you look at our budget overall. I view Discover Lewis County as a proactive effort to really market our county on the part of our local government, and that's one of the reasons I support it. And I realize that again, it's raised some questions, but I think that's a good thing, you know, that the public is asking those questions, and they do need to know, because this is their money. What is this money going for? So at this moment, without having any further information than I do at this moment, based on the information and the research that I've been able to do, I'm fully supportive of the effort.
Thank you. Moving on to another topic, the county has, in the recent past, talking the last couple of years, had some tenuous relationships. A few examples: City of Chehalis on the urban growth area, Port of Centralia on Centralia Station, Chamber of Commerce, and others on Discover Lewis County. What could you do to smooth over relations, and why do you think they became rocky to begin with, as an outsider looking in?
Well, the one thing that I think is necessary in this particular position is a reasonable voice. You cannot allow for honest differences of opinion to divide, people in relationships. You and I will have a conversation, and we will be at total opposite ends of the spectrum on what we believe is the best possible solution for that. The problem with government, I think, at times, in certain places and with some individuals, is that that's seen as a battle line being drawn, and I don't look at it that way. I look at it as an opportunity for us to figure out a way to come together. There's an old adage that I remember from years ago, and it's this, is that there's your truth, there's my truth, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. And so my goal is to be a reasonable voice that can find that middle ground in there where we can come up with reasonable alternatives to some of the issues that we have had to deal with. When you refer to the ports, I think that was more of a personality conflict ultimately. And I think there are reasonable ways for us to work those things out. With the Port of Chehalis, we're going to actively, and we already have begun to actively talk to individuals in Chehalis about what can we do to improve our relationships. As far as other entities in the county, I think the biggest thing that I can do at this moment, entering in until I can really learn this job, because you're talking about a huge learning curve here, monster learning curve. I've spent the last 18 months working on this, and I'm nowhere near where I'd like to be, but we'll get there. But in the process, what I want to do is repair those relationships, but just sitting down and having a conversation. And I think that is the biggest strength that I can bring to this. I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I believe in our directors. I believe in the people that work for the county. I believe that they're doing an outstanding job. I believe there has to be more communication from the leadership to the public. And I'm not sure we've done a very good job with that. And so that's one of the areas that I will address myself, is being able to communicate what's going on in the county to anyone and everyone at every opportunity we get, because we like to have everybody moving in a positive direction. And even though we may find different ways to do that, ultimately the goal is what's best for Lewis County. And so I think that with a reasonable voice, a calm voice, someone that's not going to take differences personal and then make decisions based on that, I think that's what's most necessary right now for that position.
The next question kind of fits into that, perhaps. You're seeking to replace Commissioner Bill Schulte, who we all wish a full recovery for. How well do you think he performed his duties of the office as an observer these past 18 months? And how would your approach be different?
Bill Schulte is arguably one of the smartest people I've ever met. Bill has this way of explaining complex situations to people in such a way that a guy like me can wrap my brain around those kinds of things. I think, honestly, with Bill, what worked against him was, again, personality, also his background in the military, and I don't think you can translate the commander of a ship into working in public life. And I say this with absolute respect. I have nothing but respect for Bill Schulte. Anyone that will step up and serve their county for 8 years the way he did deserves our respect, and he will always have that for me. But the thing is that it takes a different personality when you're working in this kind of environment. And I think that Bill leaned a little bit hard on, perhaps his military background, his expertise there, perhaps, used to giving giving orders and that sort of thing. And that's just an honest assessment on my part. As far as the job that he did as a county commissioner, Bill's was very supportive of flood mitigation, very supportive of the Economic Development Council. He's also on the board with Centralia College. He's been very, very supportive of this community. So if you can kind of separate those things out and look at his body of work over the last 8 years, I think it's been very, very good. Now, that said, where do we go from here? Because he's obviously not coming back to the seat, and it's up for me or my opponent. I want to continue the work that's already in place. Will we tweak it? We may tweak some things, sure. And there's no way I can really answer that adequately until I've seen everything that I need to see. But at this moment, I believe that a lot of the work that he's done has been very, very productive, and I want to continue that. The biggest piece of that is the flood mitigation, because he was fully on board with the first option of the water retention system in the Willpaw Hills. And I have talked to a number of people outside the courthouse that's been the one question: where do you stand on this? And I've let everyone know there will be a seamless transition on that one. We are going to continue to support that work, and it's a lot of work that Bill worked hard for. And so the groundwork's been laid, and as you said, we wish him a full recovery. Chemotherapy's tough stuff, and so we hope that he'll get better and get back on track, very soon.
Thank you. The next question kind of goes right with that one. Of the 4 alternatives presented through the State Department of Ecology report, which I know you're familiar with, which do you support and why?
I support the first alternative, which is the water retention system. Now, that said, there is some conversations about 2 different types of dams that they want to put in that area. One is strictly a retention system. The other is one that is to be used, as I understand it, for the most part during flooding. I support those options for a number of reasons. One of them being that I see that as a possible resource for us in the summer months when things dry out dramatically here, and especially when we start to see the snowpack melt off. We have the possibility of perhaps creating a water resource that will flow into the Chehalis River, which I think ultimately, if I remember my earth science correctly, flowing water is oxygen. Oxygen can create life, and that should be very good for fish habitat. The option that also includes working on fish habitat, those are the most feasible things I think we can do. But there's another part to this. We have spent in Lewis County the last, I think, 70 years or more trying to find the right answer, trying to find the right solution. Right now, the governor's task force has recommended that this is the option that we need to go with. And I think that we need to move on this, not just for the reasons that I talked about a moment ago. And I don't understand all the designs, and I know what I've been told about them. But there's another reason I think we need to move on this, and that this gives us our best opportunity to finally move forward, after all these years. The thing about this, it's not going to make everybody happy. Nothing we do in government is going to make everybody happy, but we have to do something. And I think this is the thing we need to do, because I'm looking at it as in 10 years, 20 years, let's say that the system is working well, but we find out because of technology that we can improve on this. We've already got it in place. We're not going back to square one and trying to refigure this thing out again. We've got the plan in place. Let's put it in motion. Our legislators are working diligently to get the state to allocate money to us next year. We understand that we're very close there. We need to get this process going. We need to get the permitting process going on this, and I think we'll be able to tweak it as we go. We'll figure it out, but we've got to be moving in a positive direction.
Thanks. Based on your knowledge again, and I would assume also the Chronicle's coverage of the matter, do you believe the recent hiring process for a permanent 911 manager was appropriately conducted, considering the police departments of the 2 largest cities weren't involved and the vote of no confidence wasn't addressed in the interviews?
I think it was. I think it was handled appropriately. I know there were questions about why weren't the commissioners' names attached to it. But frankly, I think that was strictly Steve Walton's decision to make, since the 911 communications director works directly for Central Services. The past history notwithstanding, I believe that Dave Anderson has proven that he can do the job. I know he has the confidence of the courthouse. He has the confidence of the people that are working in 911. And some of the things you're referring to were issues that have since been dealt with, I believe, based on the information that I've been able to gather on that. As a matter of fact, when all of this came out, I asked for a tour of the 911 comm center. And I was thoroughly impressed with the technology, thoroughly impressed with the professionalism that I saw up there. Are there things that need to be fixed? Absolutely. Absolutely. There are things that need to be done, but I know that Steve and Dave both have worked diligently to see to it that those things get done. As far as the police chiefs of the 2 cities, I can't answer that. I can't answer that. I do know that there were a number of people from here locally that were in approval of that. So some of the things you're asking me about I can't answer, but that's my position on that.
Fair enough. So we talk about the timber industry, you mentioned that, kind of related to the issue of economic development. Has the county missed out on by extending its pot moratorium over and over? There was a story from a newspaper up north this weekend that at least $1 million investment went to another county. So has the county missed out?
No, I don't think so, because the moratorium was designed to give the county an opportunity to put regulations in place so that when we do lift the moratorium, and it's going to be lifted, that we have done our due diligence. There was a problem in some counties after the state made recreational marijuana legal. We know some counties that threw the doors open to allow that to begin to happen, but they didn't consider some of the things that they needed to consider as far as air quality goes, as far as water goes, as far as sewage goes. You know, those things that are very important for us to consider as far as our citizens are concerned. And so Lewis County was very proactive in trying to set those things into a code, if you will, or into regulations so that we could make sure that we were covering all of our areas, because there are liabilities. Let's face it, there are liabilities with this, and we wanted to be sure that we were able to cover our liabilities. The moratorium is going to be lifted, but here's the other part of this, and there's been a lot of discussion about this. You still have to have a federal permit to be able to grow marijuana in the unincorporated areas of Lewis County. So even if we lift the moratorium, which we will, and the regulations will be in place, no one will be able to grow here until the federal government says it's okay.
That's understood.
That's going to happen. We get that. It is going to happen. So when we and there's been a lot of talk about money that could come into the county. I think there's another reality to that, and that is that the county would not necessarily see, and this is just based on the information that I have at this moment, but the county would not necessarily see a huge economic boom from this. The state will. The state will see an awful lot of sales tax money come in from this. The county will see money coming in from permitting, that sort of thing like that. How much actual income comes from it, I don't know that that's I don't know that it's that large. So that's where we stand right now with the moratorium, and I don't think the county's missed anything. I think the county has their whole goal was to make sure they protect their citizens in the process.
If elected, what would you do in your first years in office to help spark or otherwise improve economic development?
My first year in office.
Years.
My first years in
Yeah.
office. Government does not create jobs. We all know that. But government's responsibility is to create an atmosphere where those things can come. We are one of the most overregulated states in the union, and it's disheartening to me. I read a recent report in the Economist that graded states on their business friendliness, regulations, those sorts of things like that. Washington scored consistently low in most of those areas. They scored a C in business friendliness, which I found that amazing. Just puts us at kind of average, but they scored a D plus or D minus in overregulation. And what's interesting is that our neighbor directly to the east of us in Idaho, they score A pluses in all those categories. They're business friendly. They're not overregulated. And so I'd like to see us get more to scoring, in the high C's, maybe the B's, and so on and so forth like that, just to use a, school analogy, I guess. My function as a county commissioner is to help with the business of the county with two other commissioners. And I think that's the first and foremost responsibility of a commissioner. My goal is to bring more of a cohesiveness with the other two commissioners. I heard someone say here recently that they didn't necessarily want all the commissioners to agree with each other, and I think we need to quantify that and say we do need to be in agreement, because we have to set the policy for the county. We can all have different ideas about how we get there, but I think there needs to be a cohesiveness, because I don't think there has been in some time, and I think we all get that and understand that. That's the first thing that I have to do. I have to be the guy that's willing to go in and listen more than anything. Leadership is about influence. And if we can influence people to move in a positive direction, that's the other job of a commissioner, is to set the tone for the future. As far as changing the economy, it's not going to be a rapid change. It's not going to happen. It's going to be slow, but it's going to be deliberate. And we want to make sure that as we do this, that the changes that will come will be permanent changes, that they'll be firm changes, that they'll have good foundation, they'll have a good basis to them. We have so many opportunities, I believe, out there available to us right now. I'm thinking about the industrial park at TransAlta, and I met with Alan Rowe, who took me on a tour out there. We've got a 25-acre plot out there that's they're ready to turn dirt on this thing. The only thing they don't know is how big of a water line to put in there, because they don't know how much water is going to be required of an industry that wants to come in there. But I like their mission statement, and that is they only want business to come in there that's going to be beneficial for the county as a whole, and it's going to put money back into the county. And so it's a slow process. It's a slow process finding that industry to come in here. We also face some problems with employment. We have a number of people in our county that are unemployed, well, for one reason or another. Could be any number of things. We could list them here, but a lot of it has to do with changing the culture, changing the thought processes. You mentioned the timber industry here a moment ago. We are still a timber county, and I believe that we always will be a timber county, but the industry has changed, and we are under regulations now that make it a little more difficult for that to be our centerpiece as far as our economy goes. Was it recently the EPA or the DNR is pushing us back on another endangered species, and the county's going to take a monster hit for that, budget-wise. So my question is, yes, first of all, my question is, what's our plan B? First of all, we're going to fight for the timber industry. We're going to fight to get back what we can in the timber industry. But I don't believe that it's ever going to be what it was before. And I believe the industry has changed. Corporate America has changed since 2008. And so companies like Sierra Pacific, just to name one right off the bat, has been very good at pushing forward with technology. And they are doing a marvelous job in the industry. That's what we need to see happen all over the county, is to allow technology to come in and give us the direction on where we need to go with that industry. We fight for that, but at the same time, what's Plan B? Plan B has got to be industry. We've got to begin to talk to industry about coming here. I believe we need broadband communications all over this county. You know, the generation, my son's generation, are graduating from college with degrees that allow them to work for major corporations, but they don't necessarily have to be in the office every day of the week, and they can choose to live where they want to. Well, with us being positioned where we are here between Seattle and Portland, I think a lot of people that are working in those areas that only have to be in the office a day or two a week might like to live here. And if they do, they need to be able to do business here. And if we can provide solid, strong broadband communication, that can happen. Houses get built. More tax money comes into our base. And so all of these things working together, I think, will make a huge difference. I want to fight for the timber industry. But the reality is we have to make up for the attrition that we have suffered from that industry, and so we've got to go after industry. And I really believe that this particular election is being watched outside this county. And the reason I feel that way is because I believe there are industries and businesses that really do want to come here, but they're looking to see, are we going to have a reasonable are we going to have people that are reasonable to talk with? Is Lewis County, are they getting along with each other? Is the biggest thing. And I think that's, first and foremost, that's what we have to accomplish, is that people can see that we are all working together for one common good, specifically in our leadership, specifically in our government, that we're working together, we're not fractured, we're coming together as one in order to see to it that 20 and 30 years down the line, things are in place for our county to continue to thrive, well into the next few generations.
Got one more question for you, and then we'll give you a couple minutes for a closing statement.
Okay.
Is there a weakness through your opponent that you think makes you a better candidate specifically?
Wow. My opponent he's a good man. He's got a good heart. and he's been a part of this county he's been here all of his life, and I know that he loves this county. I believe that his approach is not realistic to how we are able to move forward. He's very passionate about the timber industry, very passionate about agriculture, but there's no plan B. There's no talk of where do we go from here. Some of the statements about pushing back on the state and federal government, pushing back on bureaucracy, those are sound bites because I've read the manual, and the RCW in the state of Washington specifically says that a county commissioner's job is to implement state and federal policy. So when you talk about pushing back on the state and federal government, that makes people nervous, because in order to change the system, you have to work within the system to make that happen, and you have to approach it correctly. The state constitution of Washington basically says that the people of this state will not surrender their sovereignty. And so everything, we practice open government here. There is transparency. There has to be. We have no choice in that matter. Public disclosure, as you folks well know, makes it impossible for us to even attempt to hide anything if we wanted to. But that's not what we want to do. We want to be completely open and transparent. The answers to our problems are not just simply a pushback on bureaucracy. They're much more complex than that. And I believe what makes me the better candidate is the fact that I know that, and I recognize that. And I've spent the last 18 months basically studying this particular position. I've been to more meetings in the last year than I have in my entire life. But I've grown in my knowledge of the county. I've grown in my knowledge of what this job looks like. And even on the day that I'm elected, I'm going to realize that curve still goes straight through the roof, because there's so much that has to be absorbed, so much that we have to learn. And my opponent, quite frankly, has not done that. He's not put the legwork in. He's not put the time in like I have, because this is important to me. It's incredibly important to me. It was never about politics. Never has been, and never will be. It's about really wanting to go and do something solid for my kids, my grandkids, for your kids and your grandkids, for the people of Lewis County, and give something back to this community. This community has given me an awful lot, so I want to give something back. And so the best way I know how to do it is go serve.
Excellent. You have about 2 minutes left, and I'd let you have that time to make a final appeal to the voters.
Let me say thank you to the Chronicle staff for allowing me to come today, for inviting me here. Eric, thank you so much. You and I have had a couple of conversations, and I look forward to working with you even more down the line. This election is very, very important, as we all know, on so many levels: national, state, and local. My goal is very simple. It's to work hard and to be fair and to be open to the community about who we are, what we're doing, and where we're going. I believe that our better days are ahead, and I believe that by forward thinking we can begin to put some things in place, some foundations in place, that the next generation will be able to pass the baton off to them and give them that opportunity to build on the foundation that we've started. The only legacy that I would like to leave is being able to walk away from this at one point knowing, Jackson, you did everything you needed to do. You accomplished the things that you needed to accomplish. It's not about having a name on anything, or it's not about being recognition. This is about literally going to work and trying to accomplish the few things that the Lord has given me to accomplish before I'm out of here, so that we can pass it off to the next generation, and they can take it and they can build it and they can put their name on it. We have to be thinking like that, and that's the kind of leadership that I'll bring to the courthouse. It's a servant leadership. It understands that a leader can only lead as far as he's able to get people on board with where he's going, and as far as he's able, his willingness to serve them. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I really appreciate the support. I'm looking forward to being the next county commissioner, District 2.
Thank you. That concludes it.